What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. We have shown you the 2020 schedule for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, let's take a look at their projected record based off of this schedule. And to be clear, like I say in all these videos, this is not a prediction. We are a long ways away from making an official prediction. This is just a projection based off of the schedule. We'll just kind of group some teams together, throw out some percentages, and just give you a projection of what this team maybe should do against the schedule. Maybe they do better, maybe they do worse. Here's the scale. Again, 99% green. That means pretty much a guaranteed win. 80% is a game that they're going to be favored probably by double digits. Not a guaranteed win, but a game that they should win. They'll be favored by a decent amount, double digits. 60% is a game where they're going to be the favorite, but it's one of those games that almost could go either way. Maybe favored by 6 or 7 or 8 points, somewhere in there. And then, of course, you got your 50-50 games that could go either way, games where I would see the spread being 3 or 4 points or less. And then you can flip that around, obviously, if they're the underdog. So let's get into the schedule here for South Carolina and where we see these games. I think they have 3 games that are basically 99% games that they should win. Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, and Wofford. Obviously, Wofford's an FCS team. East Carolina has been down now for a while. Coastal Carolina could be a sneaky game where they're not going to win by 30, but I think it would shock me if South Carolina lost that game. Again, it might be one of those games that's a little bit more competitive than you might think, but they should absolutely win that game. So you've got 3 games out of the way, should win these games. That means you need 3 more to get to a bowl game, and you look at the schedule and think that could be a little bit tough. It could be a little bit tough. We go now to the other side of this, and actually those are the only 3 games that I think South Carolina is going to be favored by more than 3 or 4 points. I think they will be underdogs, and the rest of these games are just barely favored. You got games here at 20%, games where I see South Carolina more than likely losing. They'll be double-digit underdogs at Florida, at LSU, at Clemson, and I think even at home against Georgia. I know South Carolina fans are going to say, look, we just beat Georgia last year. How can we only have a 20% chance to beat them this year? I mean, that game, if you look at the rest of the season, that game was a little bit of a fluke. I mean, it was. I mean, look at the other opponents. You compare them. Georgia just had a really bad game. And yeah, it could happen, and that's why I'm giving them a 20% chance to win that game. But more than likely, Georgia will get some revenge this year and win that matchup. And then we got games that I think South Carolina is going to have a shot in. They'll be underdogs by, again, about a touchdown or so. That's on the road at Kentucky. That's at home versus Texas A&M. I think they'll have a shot in these games. I think they could maybe pull off a big upset against Texas A&M. Against Kentucky on the road, I don't think the talent gap is very wide, or maybe the talent gap's about even though Kentucky has really owned South Carolina in recent years. The game is on the road, so yeah, Kentucky I think has to be favored in that matchup by about a touchdown. So those 2 games, I think South Carolina will be underdogs, but they are games that they can win. And they'll probably have to win at least one of those games if they're going to make it to a bowl game. I mean, there's still a path there. You see 3 50-50 games left. There is a path for South Carolina still to make a bowl game, but are they going to be able to beat Missouri, Tennessee, and on the road at Vanderbilt? That is going to be tough. Out of those 5 games, and when I say 5 games, I'm talking about Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. South Carolina's got to win 3 of the 5 to get to a bowl game, which I think is going to be tough. It's going to be tough, especially when you look at it and say they're going to be underdogs in a couple of those games. So Missouri, maybe they're favored by a field goal. Vanderbilt, maybe they're favored by a field goal, but it's so close that I could see those games going either way. Was close to putting Vanderbilt at about 60%, but it's on the road. It's in the SEC. South Carolina is not coming off a great year. So I think that's one, again, that South Carolina is going to be favored in, but not by much. So that's why we're calling it a 50-50 game. And that Tennessee game could be a huge swing game for the Gamecocks. They could really use a win there at home. So the projected record based off of these percentages is 5-7 for South Carolina. And we're giving them wins in the 80 and 100% games, giving them losses in the 1% game and the 20% games. And then we average the rest of that out. And again, with this schedule, it's looking like South Carolina might miss out on a bowl game again this season, but they're just 1 win away. it really depends on just how good this team is. We don't know how good South Carolina is going to be, and there are a lot of other teams we don't know about. Missouri, how good are they going to be? Can Tennessee keep it going from last year? Are they going to drop back down? Vanderbilt, how are they going to be? I mean, it's tough to say right now, and that's why we don't make predictions this early. There's a lot of things, the spring games that we will have to watch, and other things that we'll go through in this offseason, and maybe have a better idea on some of these 50-50 games. Maybe South Carolina does beat Missouri and Vanderbilt and pull off an upset somewhere in there and get to a bowl game. But I think the goal for South Carolina has to be a bowl game, 6-6. If you're expecting with this schedule 7, 8, 9 wins, I think that's going to be really tough. Again, you talk about LSU, Florida, Georgia, and Clemson, 4 games that they have pretty much they have a shot, but they don't have much of a shot in those 4 games. And when you have 4 losses right out of the gates, that makes it tough. You can only lose 2 more games, and that's why I think, looking at these projections, South Carolina projected to only go 5-7 in 2020. Thank you for watching this video. If you're an SEC football fan, please subscribe to the channel. Leave us your thoughts down in the comments below. And for the latest in SEC football, keep it right here.